Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another inks comparison video, and this is the Dominant Industry inks comparison number 1. So I think with that, let's go and swap up some of these inks. So I get a lot of questions on how I do these ink videos. So I decided I would add this to the front of each of the ink videos. I put links in the description, but I know some of you watch this on TVs or mobile devices, so you don't get to see this. So first off, the paper is the number one question I get asked. What paper do I use for these ink comparison videos? So this is the original Tomoe River. This is 52 GSM, and it is the white, not the cream, the white. Where possible, I try to go for the white because the cream can actually change the color of the ink just a little bit. So this is Tomoe River 52 GSM in the white. A lot of people get confused as well because I have what looks to be a grid on this page, and it's actually an Oxford Optik pad. These are the pads that I actually use when I'm writing my writing samples for pen reviews or in my currently ink. So they have these little squares up here. I just use that because it's a good guide for me when I put this very thin sheet of Tomoe River over. I can actually see squares, so it helps me write a little bit sort of straight on the page. Not always, but sometimes it does. The other thing that I also have is I have a bottle of water, plain water, and I dip my nib in here. So for consistency, I use the same fountain pen, or I guess it's not a fountain pen, it's using a fountain pen nib though. This is a 3D printed pen from William Shakour in the UK. So he prints this material 3D, and it has a number 8 size Bock nib which I can unscrew, and you can see there. So it is just a dip pen holder for a number 8 size Bock nib, and the idea is I want to have consistency with the writing sample. So I use this, I dip it in the ink, I write, and then I will dip it in here, and I will rinse the nib off several times, and I will dry it, and then at that point I will then go on to do the next ink swatch and the next writing sample. So there you have it. That's how I do my ink swatches. So I just wanted to show you that here. Now on to the ink comparison video. So the first ink here is a standard 25 milliliter bottle, and it is Dominant Industry Earl Grey tea. And if you know me well, I like my tea, but also my Earl Grey tea, or more so Lady Grey as well. I typically have Earl Grey tea in the morning and Lady Grey tea in the afternoon if I can. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And this is definitely, I would say, more of what I would consider to be a Lady Grey colour. Even though it is called Earl Grey by Dominant Industry, it is more of a sort of more citrusy coloured ink. But saying that, I do like it. So we'll do a second pass over the top half, and that will just show the difference between a wet or a broad or a dry or a narrow writing nib. So this is a Dominant Industry. And it is Earl Grey tea. And I do wonder why they came up with this name. It does seem to be a little bit of a strange name, Dominant Industry, but I do like the bottles. That the bottles are a lovely teardrop size of bottle. The next ink here we'll swap up today is a Dominant Industry standard 25 milliliter bottle, and it is Lakes. And I'm just going to have a look at the box. It just is called Lakes and nothing else. So we'll do an ink swatch here. And this is the first time I've actually tried the Lakes ink, and I have to say it's actually quite a nice turquoise, and I think that's probably why I chose it looking at the ink swatches online. We'll do a second pass over the top half just to show the difference between what essentially is a wet or broad or a dry or a narrow writing nib. So this is Dominant, Industry, and is just called Lakes. But actually, I think that's a really good name for that turquoisey colour of ink. The next ink here is, again, another Dominant Industry standard 25ml bottle, and it is Tsavorite. So we'll do another ink swatch here. And this is actually quite a nice green. I have used this green quite a bit in pens in the past. What I do find though is it is a little on the dry side. And I do typically find that with a lot of the Dominant Industry inks. We'll do a second pass over the top half just to show the difference between a wet or a broad or a dry or a narrow writing nib. But I do typically find if you're looking for an ink to write in a notebook, then I would definitely say that the Dominant Industries inks are probably the ones to choose, because they do typically be a little bit more dry when writing with. So this is Dominant, Industry, and it is Tsavorite. And I really want to call this favourite actually, but it's definitely a T. And then the last ink on this video is a limited edition ink from Dominant Industry in the 25ml bottle, and it is a Cult Pens limited edition, and it's called Dusk, and it is a shimmer ink, and just look at that shimmer there. It's a sort of more of a purplish colour with a silver shimmer. So I'm going to shake this bottle up a little bit just to disperse that shimmer particle. So we'll do an ink swatch, and this is going to be an interesting one because it does have shimmer in it, and I'm just going to wonder, I'm not seeing any shimmer really at the moment. I'm going to try and dig a bit deeper. I did shake the bottle quite well. So we'll do a second pass over the top half just to show the difference between a wet or broad or dry or a narrow writing nib. And this is Dominant, Industry, and it simply is Dusk, but this is a, I'll put in here, CP for Cult Pens exclusive. So I think let's take a look at these inks now that they have dried. So the first ink here is Dominant Industry Earl Grey Tea, and I do like my tea, I do like Earl Grey, and I do like Lady Grey. I would say that this is more of a Lady Grey than an Earl Grey. I guess the reason why they probably come up with an orange colour was because Earl Grey has bergamot and zest of oranges in it. So technically there is some orange in there, although typically the name grey I would say is more of a grey coloured ink, and certainly that's what Diamine and others have done in the past. Can you see the difference between a wet or broad or dry or a narrow writing nib? Yes, you definitely can. Can you see any shading? There's definitely shading here in the pulled area, and I will bring that up close so that you can see that. Is there any sheen? Now, yes, there is. There is some sheen around here in the pulled area. It's not a lot of sheen, but you can see it's trying to sheen. So you might get a little bit of sheen. In terms of the writing sample, it's a little bit more of a dirty orange, I would say, or a dusty orange, maybe a brown orange. in terms of the writing sample. The next ink here is Dominant Industry Lakes, and I think that is a good fitting name for this ink. It's a turquoise ink. It's a very, very nice color of turquoise. Can you see the difference between a wet and a broad, or a dry and a narrow writing nib? You definitely can. There is a huge difference of contrast there. Is there any pooling? Yes, there is. In that wet pooled area, in terms of shading, you can see that, and I'll bring that up close. Is there any sheen? No, I would say there's no sheen on there, but typically I've not seen sheen on turquoise inks. The writing sample there is a little bit more of a dirty or dusty turquoise, maybe a darker turquoise, but still quite nice though in that writing sample. The next ink here is Dominant Industry Tsavorite, and is it Tsavorite? Is it Tsavorite? Is it pronounced something differently? I'm not so sure. I want to say favorite actually. Instead of a TS, it would be an F for favorite. Can you see the difference between a broad or a wet, or a dry or a narrow writing nib? You definitely can see a huge difference here. Can you see any shading? There is some shading in the pulled area, and I'll bring that up close so you can see that there. Is there any sheen? No, there is not. But then again, I wouldn't expect sheen. I think the writing sample is a nice green there. It actually looks quite nice. And then the last ink here on this ink comparison video is Dominant Industry Dusk, which is a Cult Pens exclusive. Can you see the difference between a wet or a broad, or dry or a narrow writing nib? You definitely can. A huge difference there between the two. So if you have a wet or broad nib, it's really going to look quite almost stormy, I would say. Now there is shimmer. Can you see any shading? There is some shading in the pulled area around here, but the thing is there is a lot of shimmer there. So this is a shimmery ink. And you do get to see it on the writing sample, but not a huge amount. Actually, no, there probably is there. It's just the angle I'm looking at this page off camera, I'm not seeing a huge amount. But there is a lot of shimmer here. Now, what I would say is, although you get shimmer on the lighter ink, so you'd see it in a dry or a narrow writing nib, you're not going to see that shimmer as much. It's that darker color where you really see the shimmer pop. So there you have it. That's my Dominant Industry Inks Comparison number 1 video. If there are any of these inks that you like, do let me know in the comments below. Likewise, if there are any other inks that you'd like me to check out, then do let me know in the comments below. So that's my Dominant Industry Inks Comparison number 1 video. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye-bye.